The ones of you who are here with us all day, you know it's one of my favorite topics. So please, panelists, come on stage. We have a very great group. I will introduce you. But please, maybe we sit along those pictures. So as you know, the whole energy system starts to melt together with the cyber world, and that's a challenging situation. So I'm really excited that we can discuss this here in this exciting group. Switzerland, not only Switzerland, committed to become climate neutral in 2050, and that's obviously a huge challenge. So all the alternative consumption, but also alternative production of electricity will be very relevant. So it will be a lot about solar panels. It will be a lot about electric cars. It will be a lot about heat pumps and so on. So all these systems will become smarter, need to communicate to each other. And this is where we see now this melting together from real physical electricity networks to the cyber networks. So there is Thomas Zinniker, who has served as the Chief Information Officer, CIO of BKW for 9 years, and as of January he will be the new Senior Director at MSF Partners, Monti Stampa 4. Monti Stampa 4 is a lot in critical infrastructure, so I'm really excited that you are taking all that know-how right into the heart of this new company. And since 2020, he's also been at the head of the energy division within the ICT department of the Swiss National Economic Supply Office. So these guys are making sure we have certain stability in most critical infrastructure. And then we have Konrad Zöschg, CIO at Swissgrid, the national grid company of Switzerland, responsible for the safe operation and monitoring of the Swiss transmission grid, and in direct contact and collaboration with the European grid companies. So this is going to be interesting to hear what can we do as an island and what can we not do as an island here in Switzerland. Thank you very much for being here. And then Markus Riner, Head of Digitalization and IT at the Association of Swiss Electricity Companies, VSE. He is representing over 90% of the Switzerland's electricity supply in his role. So you see, I think we really have a very powerful group here to discuss the topic. Now, Thomas, the Internet of Things is not only about some weather cams and smoke detectors. Every car, every heat pump, every solar panel, and every device becomes an IoT device, right? So I also actually like my app to control my Tesla. So this is really exciting. Do you see other applications where IoT is influencing the power industry and the power grid?
Absolutely. As Jacobo already mentioned, is that the electricity area is going through a fundamental change, actually. 10, 20 years ago, it was clear downstream production and local distribution. And these days, everything is going to be decentralized, everything is going to be smart. And the whole power grid can no longer be kept stable without IT. And what I usually tend to say is electricity is IT, and IT is actually electricity. Both is so strong interlinked that you can't keep the level of service in the electricity market on the level today without IT. And IoT drives an important role. For instance, you see at the moment that there are going to be in the whole Switzerland smart meter rolled out. At the end of 2028, there are 4 million smart meters rolled out, although the majority of them are not really active. Some ports might be active, so you can switch on and switch off heat pumps, you can switch on and switch off solar panels. But this IoT environment needs to be managed. And what's going on in 10 years? They need to be replaced, or at least vital parts need to be replaced. So from that perspective, you can no longer neglect and say, IT is just a service. It's not important to the whole electricity. It is one of the vital part, the most vital part in the whole ecosystem.
And these smart meters, they are using internet in many cases, I guess.
We have 650 different solutions in Switzerland. Every single EV uses a different solution. It's a little bit, but we have 650 different companies who are providing electricity, and they have their own systems. So from that perspective, it can be tough in the future.
I see. And Konrad, your view, and you know, you is from the Swissgrid perspective, so it's an international view. Given the geopolitical instabilities and conflicts in Europe right now, would you consider a cyber attack on the European power grid with larger blackouts as a possible scenario? And if that happens, what would be the role of Switzerland? Would we anyway be blacked out immediately because we're just a little piece of that whole network? Or do you see sort of capabilities where Switzerland could still be like somehow a bit operational, or are we just part of the collateral damage in such a scenario?
Well, you start really with a tough question at the very beginning. So what we see on a European level is depending on the day-to-day situation concerning the cyber attacks, but in general it's not that problematic as long as you're not too, how shall I say it politically correctly, to the east. But the exchange in between the different TSOs is really brilliant in Europe. So we see what is happening, we exchange the data, we exchange information, and we can implement measurements here in Switzerland as well, so this works perfectly. In case there will be something like a cyber attack which influences the balance on Europe, well, also there it depends. Just to give you a number, we talk about 1,000 gigawatt production in general. So you need to attack quite a lot of them to be able to disbalance the system in total, because of the size of the system. It's quite heavy. And this means that if we have a problem in Europe, it has to be huge. And if it's huge, of course, it has an impact on Europe, on Switzerland, as long as it's not just at the border of Europe. Because a lot of electricity flows via Switzerland. So we are, depending on the stability on Europe.
Markus, I'm glad to have you on the panel. My last hope, in a way, for just good news, right, would be you. So it seems the cyber threat landscape is becoming a severe thing. I think we all somehow have an agreement there. So the question is now, how large is this threat? Larger disturbance or even blackouts seem not completely out of question. It's potentially also a bit the question of not so much if, but maybe when and how big. The VSE is therefore running an innovative action in this race against the dark side. So you seem to be willing and committed to win this battle, and you initiated the launch of the Swiss Secure Electricity Network, which is based on SCION. Can you tell us a bit more about that? That's a project at the very beginning.
Yeah, right. All eyes on me. Actually, it's not me alone, thanks God. It's a whole group of committed companies in Switzerland, electricity companies, who are committed to bring that forward and to solve these problems. Our concern is, of course, this increasing amount of aggregating platforms that have more and more impact to the power grid, be it on the production side, like PV, or be it on the consumption side, like electric car charging stations or heat pumps and all of that. So you can easily control that, and that's outside of our, say, control as an electricity company. And that's it, that's a concern. And so what we are doing right now, I informed last SCION Day already, we have created a task force to define how you want to tackle that. And we run through the process and have now an outline concept which foresees to have 2 isolation domains. One is more for the use cases that we just spoke about, like IoT, PV, charging stations, stuff like that. And there's another one more for the critical use cases, intra-industry for the collaboration between power stations and the grid operators to keep the system in balance. So the priority, we want to implement a secure Swiss utility network, which is a community network, where we run to the next detailed definition phase now until end of next quarter, and also ramp up now CA on all you need to have that operational by end of first quarter next year. And as I said, this is, so we came up with this 2 network design, because that was a question last Sunday, how many of these isolation domains do we actually need? And we came up with the conclusion that we need 2, one for the most critical inter-industry cases and one for the more open community isolation domain.
So very much comparable to the financial services sector, where we have the Swiss Secure Finance Network, which is strictly for banks and which has no communication outside, and then the more open network for the consumer financial services sector, which is currently in the design. So you also see like there needs to be like a very closed network for grid production or power production, and the more open one for the consumers, where you can steer your solar panel or your charging station for your electric car. So these are the two networks you are deploying right now.
Correct.
Very, very exciting. So just on this collaboration platform, so we heard this morning about that, and that was a case I brought in, and I was very sort of excited, or maybe also a bit concerned, like the guy who is capturing 4 million solar panels, 10, 15 gigawatt of power. Could that trigger a serious blackout if you switch off on a sunny day, 15 gigawatt?
If we look to Europe, no.
Not to Europe.
No, it's only 1.5% of the entire power. As long as we have enough balancing power, it's no big issue. If this would happen to Switzerland, of course, yes, because it's 4 times higher than we produce today, PV. And it's the same amount as we have for hydro at the moment, as I have the numbers right in mind. So in Switzerland, yes, it would be, but in Europe, not.
Okay, that's at least good news. I think it was in Holland, so maybe for Holland it would be an issue, but not for us.
Well, they're at the border, so...
Yeah. Yeah, okay, no, that's just maybe a personal interest. But I thought it's exciting that a single hacker can control such a tremendous infrastructure. So technically, it seems like there are a couple of solutions. We could come up with isolation, but then at the same time, are we really doing that, or maybe are we not doing that? So, Konrad, do you think we need more regulations on a European level to make sure that we don't have an issue here, or is it like, as you say, on a European level, not an issue? Maybe it's more on a national level.
Well, it becomes more and more an European issue, definitely, because if you can control more of such devices, you have the bigger power to kind of influence the stability. And that was, or is one of the reasons, there are several, but one is that in Europe, I think it was in May or June, where we started the network code for cybersecurity, where we try to influence also the suppliers to come up with devices which have a certain level of security, and it has we focus on the cross-border electricity flows with that. So we try to find out the risks which we have if we lose some equipments and what could influence the stability in other countries. And that's exactly what we do with this network code. And we will implement that over the next years. It still takes some time, longer than in Switzerland, so in Europe. And I think with the power of Europe, we are able to influence enough what happens on the manufacturer side.
So that sounds promising, that sounds good. Is it enough, you think, Thomas, or on a national layer? I know you sometimes sounded a bit more concerned on if you talk about smart meters and all that stuff.
From my perspective, I think, although I'm very liberal in that respect, we need more regulations, or even we need more standardizations, because today we have a lot of very, very good solutions in the end, but every solution has its own way of solving an issue. Let me make an example. Sometimes it looks to me like when you're driving on the road and you have to change the side where to drive on the road from city to city, because one city thinks left-hand side is better, or the traffic the traffic lights are, why having red, why not blue, and on top that's not nice, let's put it in the middle. And that changes from every application to every application. So the standardization is one of the key topics from my perspective, which needs to be solved through regulations. Otherwise, everybody invents a new traffic light system, how to steer it. This morning I just counted on my smartphone how many authenticator apps I have on my smartphones for multi-factor authentications. I have more than 7. It's not necessary. It's just pure lack of standardization. And that's one aspect which is, from my perspective, a very, very important thing, how to standardize things, to make it easier. And in the end, that leads to reducing complexity. And the reduced complexity has automatically a reduced cyber issue.
Okay, I tried to be devil's advocate. I lately installed a power plug, and then I had to have an electrician coming, and they needed to install, and obviously it needs a certified electrician, and then a second electrician needed to come to make sure that the first electrician, even though the first one was certified, needed to make sure that the first one did the right job, and then finally I got so it was very exciting to see how much regulation for this single plug, and then obviously I can link it to the internet and nobody asks. So should we be careful to over-regulate? Are you in more in guidelines or more in regulations? I mean, you're doing this initiative without the regulations already, right? Or are you aiming for regulations?
No, actually our role is really to avoid regulation, specifically also then to avoid over-regulation. So now the initiative clearly is the goal is to create a solution to solve these problems, but we will see at the adoption rate how we can progress and how we can make the system more secure. And we will see whether we need some regulation or whether the industry can adopt the technology and our solution as fast as we would like to see that, and the regulator, of course. And as I say, if we need regulation, we would work with the regulator to define exactly what it needs, as we did it with the minimum standard. You have to see the minimum standard that was only created because the industry did not adapt quickly enough, and that to the proposals we made as an association. So we had then this desert of the cybersecurity maturities in the landscape, and that triggered actually the regulation for the minimum standard. But we want to try again to avoid it. We'll see whether you can achieve that.
You don't seem super euphoric or positive that we will be completely able to avoid regulations.
difficult to say. I mean, the technology is here. We have the solution. We build a cool platform. We build cool solutions together with the whole ecosystem. It's a no-brainer. Companies should really join this isolation domain, and then they are safe.
Yeah.
Clear as that.
I mean, I totally appreciate that. I in general don't like regulations too much, but maybe we should open up the panel for questions to the audience, especially in this very difficult topic about regulations. Yes.